Hi, this is Terry Flint, and this is number 6 of our Let's Be Resilient Together. Because many of you do Pilates, I wanted us to talk about core. As you know, Pilates is all about strengthening our core. And I took the time to do a Google search about why it's important to have a strong core. And I found an article from Harvard Health Publishing that I just wanted to read with you for a minute about why it's so important to have a strong core. And by the way, if you're not doing Pilates, this may prompt you to consider trying it and joining us. This is called the real-world benefits of strengthening your core. Think of your core muscles as the sturdy central link in a chain connecting your upper and lower body. Whether you're hitting a tennis ball or mopping the floor, the necessary motions either originate in your core or move through it. No matter where your motion starts, it ripples upward and downward to the adjoining links of this chain. Thus, weak or inflexible core muscles can impair how well your arms and legs function. And that saps power from many of the moves you make. I like that sentence. And that saps power from many of the moves you make. Properly building up your core cranks up the power. A strong core also enhances balance and stability. Thus, it can help prevent falls and injuries during sports or other activities. In fact, a strong, flexible core underpins almost everything you do. What struck me about this definition of core is that it's actually pretty synonymous with knowing what's essential to you or what matters most. What really is at the core of who you are. Funny, I keep pointing to my core as I'm talking about this, but it's so critical for us to really know our core, know what's essential. And I think when we know it and when we strengthen it continually, it gives us the same benefits as strengthening our physical core. It increases our power. It helps us to be strong and flexible, and it enhances our balance and stability. Think about that kind of in an emotional or mental way, that knowing your core or what's essential gives us that. Now, I've also thought about that word essential because we see it a lot, right? What are the services that are essential to continue to do even during a crisis? I've also noticed, or it ties into a belief I have about Costco. It's a story that I've told quite often, and that is that when you go to Costco, I mean, who doesn't love to go to Costco, or what other big store that you like to go to? But it's so fun to go in and all of a sudden see things that you thought were essential, but that you didn't know were. And so it's not uncommon that while we go in for milk, we could come out with a kayak. Because in the midst of going clear to the back of the store for milk, we see these other wonderful things and we're thinking, oh, my neighbor has a kayak, I think I might need a kayak. And wouldn't that be fun for us to do? And you get out, where the truth really comes is at and so let me go back. So while you're shopping the whole store, you continue to find things that you didn't know you needed. You gather them into your grocery cart. And I think a little bit of the reality check comes when you go to check out and the $4 or $3 gallon of milk is now $200. But even more, I think the reality comes when you get to your car and like, oh, where am I going to put this kayak? Because I think we've really begun to forget about our core. We believe we can have all things and everything is important when maybe we've discovered everything isn't. And we've begun to prioritize really what's most essential, what's critical to our core, what's the other stuff that may be less important. I saw this quote that in the rush to return to normal, in the rush to return to normal, this may be the time to consider what parts of normal are worth rushing back to. Something to consider here. When there's an exercise that I think may help us find our core, if you don't already know what's really essential to you. Let me go back. Forgive me for forgetting a little bit of the story. So one of the obviously antidotes for that Costco experience where you walk out with a kayak and you forgot about the milk is a shopping list, right? Shopping lists help us know or remember what's essential for us to buy. I'm curious, I think I've never seen as many shopping lists as I've gone to the grocery store in the last month. People really come in, they're in there to get what's most important and then to be on their way. And so an exercise that might be worth doing, if you're not really clear or if you've never written down what's essential to you, is to consider and taking a little bit of time to do this exercise. It goes like this. So imagine that you're 85. That's about where we're projected to live, a normal lifeline, and that you're in front of all of your family and friends, and you're sharing with them the 5 most important things you've accomplished, acquired, or become. So you're looking ahead, we're moving ahead and then looking back to say from your life now until you're 85, what is it that you're going to be most proud of as you leave your heritage to your family or with your family. Now, the one rule in doing this exercise, and it's an important rule, is that you can only list or put down on this what you have control over. And I say that because for many of you, the very first thing you were going to write is that your children are happy and healthy. And while I love that as a vision, as a wish, it's not in your control. So you really can't put that on the list of what you're going to do. Now, there's some variations on it, right? Maybe the variation on that is I'm going to be the best parent I can be. And it would be a little bit better if you were actually be a little bit more detailed, that I taught my children how to work hard, or that I taught them how to be kind, and that I role modeled that kindness, so that when you're 85, what you really want to share with people is the value of being kind. So put aside things you have no control over, and list what is it that you really want to do with your life. That when the time comes to say goodbye, you're proud and happy about what you've accomplished and who you've become. It's interesting, as I've done this exercise with thousands of people, it very seldom has to do with cars, the kind of car they drove, or the house where they lived, or their stuff. A lot of it has to do with what kind of person they were. Some of it has to do with adventures, and I appreciate that. Or other things that are not so tangible. And I think that's telling, again, that while we've put a whole bunch of our energy into gathering stuff, in the long run, it may not be what's really important, what's essential for us. And that's why it's important to come back to what is essential. Now, what I would encourage you to do is that you don't just keep this in your thinking, that you actually write this down. Why? Because there's something about getting it out of your head and writing it down that begins to make it a little bit more real. And that's not really the end of the exercise, because when you go to Costco and you forget your shopping list, and the shopping list wasn't of much value, the real value of writing what's essential to you is writing it and then posting it. putting it in a place where you see it regularly. My list or my kind of core vision is in a frame on my desk where I see it really quite often. And it's interesting that as many times as I do this exercise, that core vision stays the same or has just some minor tweaks. And that's actually the third step. So the first step is to write it down. The second is to post it in a place you could see it. The third, though, is to reflect, review, and revise. As you begin to know yourself more or have experiences like the coronavirus, you may end up revising your essentials, your list, and that's great. You want this to be a living document where as you learn, you discover more about what's important and what's not. And fifth is that I think the skill that many of us are lacking, and maybe be the change of this, the outcome of some of this crisis, is that we learn to say no to those things that are not essential. That we don't have to keep putting our power out onto things that are not part of our core. That maybe we step up and manage our media a little better and the consumerism and begin to say, yeah, that's great for you. Love that you need the kayak. I don't need a kayak. Instead, I just want to go hiking. And this isn't about comparing about what you do versus other people, because we all can have different cores, different things on our list. But the key is to be true to who you are and to align your resources, which include your time, your money, and your energy into that which is most important to you. You know, the other piece is then a whole lot of practice. I love the idea of the core exercises because we know that without doing them regularly, without doing them weekly, we begin to lose those muscles. They have to be worked always, continuously. And I love that notion as compared to our essentialist lists or our list of what matters most. It has to be worked on continuously. It's not a one and done thing. That it kind of comes back to setting time and to making decisions with courage that align to our core. Now, this is a great exercise to do with your spouse or your partner and with your family, because families can have a core as well. What really is most important to us? And we want to stay true to those and to actually post them on the fridge where all of us say, yeah, that's what's most important to us. These are our values. These are our beliefs. This is what keeps us strong. And that's what we can really rely on. I love too the notion as we started, what I started with, that all of our motion goes through our core. And I believe it goes not only through my physical core, but it goes through my mental and emotional core, this very topic, this very list that we're talking about. If you're looking for a resource that helps define this concept, this is one of the most amazing books that I've read. It's one of those reread books. It's called Essentialism by Greg McKeown, and it's awesome. It is a book worth reading about essentialism. It's a book he could probably write post-coronavirus, but nothing is more applicable as to this one for today. We've learned a lot in the last few weeks, and I just want to end with one of my favorite quotes that kind of keeps guiding me to be strong and to be working on being more resilient. It's from Harry Brown, and he says, when you know that you're capable of dealing whatever comes, you really have the only security the world has to offer. Give that some thought. When you know that you're capable of dealing with whatever comes, you have the only security the world has to offer. I hope that you've strengthened your core by watching these videos, by learning and just being thoughtful about the concepts and the ideas that have been presented. They're all very scientifically based, and I'm convinced that by sharing them with you, I'm actually blessed and honored that I've been able to share them with you. It's strengthened my core, and I hope yours, and that hopefully we can keep doing it together back in our Pilates classes. Thanks.